in order, truth and taxation hearing, Hibbing Public Schools ISD 701, December 7th, 2022, the time is 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're in the boardroom. And with that, we'll go to item 2, Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you wish. This is another meeting. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. With that, we'll move to item 3, a motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Director Polter, supported by Director McLaughlin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. With that, we'll move to item 4. This is going to be a combination of our business manager, Alex, and the superintendent running the machine over there.
This ought to go smooth.
Superintendent Rick, okay, you want to take it over?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Alex, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can everybody hear me and see me?
Well, we can't see you because I have your presentation up, but, you know,
That's probably better yet then.
there's Alex.
Hi, Alex.
How you
Well,
feeling?
I apologize, I can't be there tonight. It was my turn to try the COVID thing, I guess, so. It's been an interesting week, I guess, but we'll try and get through it the best we can, so I apologize.
Well, good luck to you, and I hope you feel better, and we'll get on with it quickly for you.
Well,
Thank
Alex,
you.
you and Superintendent Aldrich must have done a really good job because the boardroom is empty, other than us, so that's a good thing.
That works for me.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
So Alex, we're on your main page, your title page, Truth and Taxation. You just let me know when you want to switch pages.
Sure, so this presentation looks pretty familiar to what I've done in the past. Same format, just changing some of the numbers. There's I think an additional slide in there addressing one of the levy changes, but generally pretty much the same process that we've done before. If you could forward to the agenda slide.
Okay, we're there.
So just, this is what we're going to briefly go over, the meeting requirements and why we're here. Have a levy discussion, look at our April 23 levy, the levy process, and some of the factors that change the levies. And we'll end with a quick budget review of the budget that we approved in June, look at the revenue expense breakdown, and then end with just an overview of enrollment, just to keep the board at least annually updated on trends that we're seeing with the enrollment. Next slide, please, Mr. Aldrich.
Okay, we're there.
So truth and taxation, Minnesota statute 275-065 is the proposed property taxes. Back in September, the board voted to certify the proposed taxes at the maximum level. What that did is allowed the county to send out proposed property tax statements saying, this is what your taxes may be at the maximum authority approved by the school district. So any property tax or property owner in the district should have received a proposed tax statement. And that is how we set our preliminary levies for all the jurisdictions, including counties, cities, townships, and the school districts. And on those proposed notices, it says where and when to be at truth and taxation meetings for each jurisdiction, and where you can ask questions or discuss the property taxes. Jurisdictions must hold a hearing prior to certifying the levy, and that is going to take place at the end of this presentation, where there'll be an opportunity for comment, and then we will certify the levy with the second item on our agenda. Next slide, please.
Okay.
As I said, this meeting satisfies the district's requirement for truth and taxation. The school district, as I mentioned, is required to present on the proposed property tax levy payable in 2023, a review of the budget, and allow for public comment. Next slide, please.
Okay.
I've had this in there every year. It's just a review of the levy cycle. It's actually, we're always touching 3 years with this process. So the levy we're certifying tonight in 2022, December 2022, is payable in 2023. In May and October of 2023, the county will collect that money and distribute it back to the district. And then reconciliation in 2024. There's always adjustments where some things are over levied, some things are under levied, and it's a 2-year lag by the time everything is closed out for what's certified in fiscal year 2022. And the levy process didn't just happen a couple of days ago. We started this in the summer, sending data to MDE, getting things approved. So it's a lengthy process, and every year I feel like I learn a little bit more, and it's always interesting. So on the next slide, just moving on to the numbers for our payable 2023 levy. Total levy of $3,613,020.87. This is an increase of $277,000 and some change for 8.3% increase from the payable 2022 levy. So up front, that looks like a sizable increase, and it is, but I'm going to explain what goes into that on the next slide, some of the factors that are causing that increase. Are we on the
Yes.
changes?
Yes, we are.
I wouldn't call it a significant factor, but I always keep it on here just because it's of interest to the board. The retiree insurance, this is the district's authority to levy for health insurance costs related to employees that were hired before, in our case, July 1st, 2008. Contractually, those employees, they can get the retiree health insurance. Really, that's a fairly small increase compared to what we've had in the past, as a result of a decrease in premiums. It's a number of these folks moving onto our supplemental plan, but I just keep it on there just to keep an eye on it for the board. The taconite production adjustment increased to almost 20,000. Again, not a huge driver in this, but I like to keep it on here. And I have another slide further down talking about the taconite production adjustment. But really the big story here for the payable 23 levy is the debt excess and an increase in market and property values in the district. So as far as the debt excess, I have a slide that goes into more detail on that, but what that really does is look at the debt of the district and the fund balance, and it calculates to make sure that the district meets its obligations to pay its debt and either increases or decreases the levy accordingly to make sure the district meets its obligations. And as a result of a number of factors, the levy is calculating that we need to levy a bit more this year for some debt that's coming due in 2025. As far as the market values, this is not really anything that's in the control of the district. It's happening for every jurisdiction. Property values go through the roof across the board, and it's just part of the levy this year. It's part of something that boards across not only the state but the nation are dealing with. So those are the big items that are changing the levy for payable 23. In the next slide, I just wanted to address the debt excess. This is not something that we've had on here in recent years, but like I said, it's an adjustment made to the levy based on the fund balance. So depending on your fund balance and your investments, earnings, interest, and any debt service payments made, you carry a restricted fund balance, just like we do for food service, just like we do for community ed. And the formula is saying we need more cash in the debt service fund balance, so we're going to increase the levy, which the district has the authority to do based on the type of borrowing that was done several years ago. So when the fund balance gets too high, based on the projected needs, a negative debt excess adjustment occurs, which is what we had last year. Last year we had a negative adjustment of $368,000. This year our adjustment is negative $68,000. So that increases $300,000 on our levy. based on the fund balance of our debt service fund. So this money is levied and paid for regardless. It's really a matter of timing, and as we get closer to our maturity of that debt, we're just really truing up what needs to be levied for the debt service. And again, feel free to jump in with questions at any time, otherwise I'll keep moving on here. Next slide is the taconite levy comparison. I've had this on here the last couple of years. The taconite levy is based on a 2-year average of production. Production goes up, the taconite adjustment goes up. Production goes down, the share of the local taxpayers goes up. It doesn't change any revenue for the school district, it just changes the source. So you can see the several year history there on the taconite levy. And so for example, we're payable 2020 drops off with the 1.4 million in exchange for the pay 23 of 1.3 million. So not a huge game changer here, but that was a couple slides ago where I talked about the taconite production levy going down actually increases the levy on the local taxpayers. So that was a small factor in this year's increase in the levy. And then on the next slide, just the levy history in the form of a graph. I guess I'm having trouble pulling it up, but it's had ups and downs. In the last couple of years, there was a significant in 2020 with the issuance of bonds against our certificates of participation against our lease levy, and that will stabilize and flatten out over the next couple of years. We had a flat down year, and then this year with the debt excess, it's going up again. I would expect the debt excess to level off after this year's increase, and after the formulas adjust to the fund balance of the debt service. And then on the next slide, just to wrap up with the levy adoption, that's tonight, Wednesday, December 7th, 6 p.m. at this regularly scheduled board meeting with the next motion on the agenda. So that is the levy portion of the presentation. And now I'm just going to briefly review the 23 budget, and then we'll have an opportunity for any questions or comments. All right. Mr. Aldridge, are you on the...
We are on the fiscal year 2023 budget.
Perfect, thank you. So just with the general fund, and this was what was given to you in June, we projecting a $400,000 deficit, which in and of itself is one thing, but there, we were relying on some stimulus and American Rescue Fund money to get to that point. So without those monies, it's a much larger deficit, and we've had extensive conversations about addressing this, and we'll talk about more when we approve our audit and as we look to next year's budget. But again, it's trying to stick to the plan and making difficult decisions, but just keep in mind that there is some rescue funds integrated into that general fund budget of a deficit of $400,000. I'll go through the rest very quickly. The food service balance budget, we work with INAC. They do a great job of trying to make sure we don't overspend. Can't say enough good about them. And then transportation, also very great partners to work with. We did overspend in transportation in fiscal year 22. We'll talk about this when we go through our audit. This was somewhat by design. We had Mr. Tom Watson as our consultant to help us work through our transportation contracts. And we repurposed and reprogrammed some routes and some coding so that there was more special education transportation and miles. And we are assured, I guess, that in 1 to 2 years, we'll start seeing increases in our transportation revenue that'll start paying for that transportation deficit. So on that one, we kind of just got to sit tight. And again, our providers are great partners to the district as well.
Alex, can I jump in
Yeah.
quick?
Absolutely.
Can you just, I mean, I know you said in 1 to 2 years, we're gonna see an increase in transportation funding. Can you just explain why with that lag of sped reimbursement?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's quite a bit of formulas, but so, for example, the year ended that we're, fiscal year 22 ended June 30th. And then we worked through the summer into the fall, and hopefully finishing by November 30th with auditing the financials, reporting on transportation, and reporting on our mileage, on all of our routes and our categories of disabled and special transport. The state takes the next 6 to 9 months calculating the aid for fiscal year 24, and then as that aid comes in fiscal year 25, they actually adjust and true up on what the true transportation aid should be for fiscal year 22 and 23. So there is a lag with the state aid on the transportation reporting. So we're confident that our strategy will be successful with our last contract negotiation with the transportation. Does that answer, Mr. Alden?
Yes, thank you.
No problem. And then in community ed, that was always a very healthy fund for us. We usually made money in community ed, and not projecting as much this year. And this also by design, we planned on spending money on, I can't remember the number exactly, but a few at least teachers. I think we have some custodial staff in the new early learning center, and we're using some resources, and in this case, the resources will be our fund balance in community education and early childhood to get this program off the ground. Hopefully, as these younger kids start getting into kindergarten, first grade, this will pay for itself. But we're fortunate enough to have a healthy community education fund balance to help us launch this new site and new program. And then for capital, we always Fund 5, we always try to keep that fairly balanced. Just a couple weeks ago, Mr. Aldrich and I met with Mr. Glad, and we always try to map out, he has his list of needs, and then we have our list of financial restraints, and we try to prioritize what we can do, what we can't do, what can wait, what can't wait. And I'll say we spent a lot on capital in the last couple of years, and that's great. We're taking great care of our facilities, but we always try to be mindful and keep Fund 5 balanced. In Fund 6, Construction Fund, no expected revenue. The expense there is dollars that are sitting in a trust fund for projects from prior fiscal years. So that $400,000 would be like a payable to Max Gray or Peterson Companies for the Cheever Field or the Washington Elementary. So once these projects are done, that fund will zero out for us. The debt service fund, again, it's fairly pre-programmed and designed to meet your debt obligations that are on your books for the future. Trust fund is scholarships, an in and out fund, as well as the extracurricular fund and the Fund 31 student activities. So that is an overview of what is planned for fiscal year 23. On the next slide.
Alan, can I ask one quick question, and then Director
Absolutely.
McLaughlin has one too. So would it be fair to say, and we're looking at, we know that we had projected to overspend in the general fund nearly 400,000.
Yes.
But that number at the bottom, which is 968,000, the reason that is so high is related to that construction fund, which we do have money to pay for, but it's more reconciling in your budget, correct? Could you just talk about that quick? Because that's kind of a sobering number, you know, from what we had projected to be overspent.
Yeah, so the 406,000 in the construction, it shows a deficit because there's no corresponding revenue in that year. But, you know, if you look at the previous year, there was more revenue than expense because we sold bonds, we got $9.5 million, and it's sitting in a trust account with US Bank, and we draw it as we use it. So as these projects come to a close, we'll draw that down to nothing, but the revenue is booked in fiscal year 2021. So it shows as a surplus in the first year and then a deficit in the next year until there's zero revenue, zero expense, and then our construction account goes into hibernation until the next time we decide to use it. Does that make sense?
So for a layman, there's money in the account to pay our bills, correct? This isn't we're not overdrafting here.
Correct, yep. There's still money in that trust account, or there was at the end of the fiscal year. And there just wasn't revenue in that year to reflect it. But when you add up as an asset, that money would be reflected as sitting in that trust account. It's just in a revenue expense type of breakdown. That's just the way that works for us.
So instead of, oh, sorry.
No, I just have a quick question, and this might be more when the audit is presented, but I think we said in our general fund of like almost a negative 400,000 deficit, that in order to get to that, we used extensive stimulus funds. Do we have any idea, ballpark, how
Yeah.
much in stimulus funds was used to arrive at the 400,000 deficit?
Under our current plan, we're looking to use between 1.5 and 2 million to get to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So, so it looks like we've overspent by 968,000, right? Am I interpreting that right? But we actually haven't, because you can take that 406,000 for construction, you can kind of take that off of that. So then we
Yeah.
really overspent by 500,000, not $1 million? Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And this isn't us having overspent yet. This is in the current year ending June 30th, 2023.
Oh, this is in the future, okay.
Yeah.
So we haven't
when
overspent yet, this is future.
we expect to overspend, and then in a couple of weeks when we go through our audit, that is actual as of June 30th.
Okay, but we're expecting, unless we make cuts, right? We're expecting to be overspent by about 500,000 or
Yeah.
whatever it is, yeah.
And these would have had to been cuts that, we did make some reductions last year. Even with that, this is still our expectation.
Even after we've made cuts?
Correct.
Okay, so we're still expecting about 500,000 to be overspent at the end of 2023? Am I saying that right? I have no idea.
Yep, with a backfill of some of these SR funds. So it's really, it's a more sobering number than that, than the 400,000 that we have here. So what we did in the current year, last year, we had made about 900,000 in reductions, but it all happened through retirements and attrition, and we discontinued a couple of positions. And we were backfilling with some COVID dollars to help that budget out also.
Okay.
So now going forward, we have an approved budget that we planned that we would overspend the 399,000.
We plan for that.
We planned for that. We had some additional loss of enrollment, right? We didn't go to the positive. We lost another, how many, Alex? About another 40 to 50 students.
Yeah.
So that dollar amount right there is, about $10,000 per student. So that's about another $500,000 that had fallen off. So that number is really a million or more that we're gonna backfill again with some ESSER dollars. But this spring, we will have to either through attrition or through actual reductions, cut at least $1 million.
A million?
We have to cut another million. And our plan was about 2.5 million over 3 years.
Uh-huh.
And we're still we need to be on track to balance this out. And thank
So
goodness,
this next spring, we have to cut $1 million?
coming in April, yes, we'll have to,
How would we do that?
we're working on it. We're working on it. But at some point, I'm trying to keep it away from the classroom and people, but ultimately there will be.
Yeah, I've already had someone come up to me and say, I heard we're $1 million in debt. And I said, I haven't been told that, but now I have been told that.
Well, it's not necessarily $1 million in debt
Well,
because
that's what people say, that's.
so we have a healthy fund balance still, and we do have this SR money that can help us through that, but if we don't make these corrections now, it would be, we could kick it down the road, we could hope for the best from the legislature, we could hope that we're gonna get the 5 and 5 that everybody's pushing for, and that'll help us, but we've gotta right the ship this spring when we have the opportunity and follow our plan. And then hopefully we get some good news over the summer, maybe we can pull a few of those positions back if we get some of that funding we're expecting.
But we only have the SR funds for 1 more year.
What are the SR funds?
So the SR is
That's the
is
COVID money, right?
the COVID.
Why do
relief
we call
money.
it SR funds?
It's the acronym. Emergency stimulus something or other.
Okay, but it's the COVID funds.
Yes.
Okay. It sounds like you're talking about SR Steel. That's what I think.
We don't get any SR funds, no.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
SR, I'm sorry, SR, yeah.
So
Yes,
COVID,
sir.
okay, COVID money.
So we're, as an administrative team, we met a couple weeks ago, we meet again next week. We're developing a strategy to get us to that, to where we need to be. So I'll be sharing that with you really soon.
That's a lot.
Yes,
It's a staggering amount, it's a sobering amount, but in reality, you look back, and Alex is coming up here in our enrollment next. Our enrollment has dropped, nearly 250 students in 3 years. That's $2.5 million, right?
Yeah.
And that compounds year after year if you don't make those corrections. Then
Yeah.
2.5 turns to 5, and we've got to make some adjustments.
It's a lot of kids.
It's a lot of
It's a lot,
kids.
20 per classroom.
Wow.
And we're, as a district, we're down, and help me Alex if I get this wrong, I think as a district, we're down about 3.5% from 2018.
yeah, since 2018, I think it's almost 300 students.
And that equates, it was about 3.5%. Regionally, that number is a low number, regionally.
Others, you're saying other schools in this region?
Other schools in this region,
Have lost.
8% they've lost.
Okay, and ours-
9%.
Okay, and ours is 3.
Ours is about 3.5, yeah. But it's, 8% of 620 students in Chisholm is a heck of a lot different than 3% of 2,500 kids here in Hibbing, or 2,300 kids here in
Yeah,
Hibbing.
that's
So
true.
it hits us hard, it really hits us hard.
And that's because of homeschooling and online education?
Just yes, I mean, some of those numbers have increased, but, some of those kids have just kind of fallen off the face of the earth in
And where are
northern
they?
Minnesota.
Don't you have to get educated when you're a student?
You do, yeah, you do, yeah. But I mean, it moves, there's lots of different factors there. I mean, yes, homeschool is up, online is up, but not to that level. I mean, the number of kids that we lost in there, if you add our homeschool and our online kids together, that doesn't equal 250.
It doesn't?
And they didn't go to Chisholm, and they didn't go to Nashua, because they're also down 5-6% enrollment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Oh,
and statewide, not just here, but I mean, statewide is down also.
What's more sobering is the uncertainty of Hibbing taconite and what that could do on that $1 million number.
yeah, they're gonna save him in taconite, I have no doubt.
But then you factor in all these schools, these districts are
Yeah,
building
they are.
multi-million dollar new facilities when they're losing 6 to 8% of the students.
Exactly. How can they do
It
it?
just.
It doesn't make
It
sense.
doesn't.
No.
It just seems like an awful waste of money.
We need to
Yeah.
work together to make sure we can sustain curriculum and
Yes.
opportunities for students,
Yeah,
because that's what they're gonna take with them.
yeah,
You keep losing students, you're gonna lose your you're gonna start losing those physics classes that,
yes.
just because of lack of numbers. Then it's just it's bad for every student.
And that's why Nashua and Chisholm, we should have all combined.
You know what, and just in talking to our principal during break, right? And Kathy, I think you said this in our previous meeting, you know, we're still offering FACS classes. We have a nice complement of industrial arts, and as much as so many people think of those as electives, I think today more than ever, so many students need those skills.
Yes. Yes.
And so that's really important. And how we can try to figure out how we can work together on this part of the Iron Range. We need to do it for the students.
Yeah,
You either get together, or
Yeah.
you all sink.
I think that when Sandy Rupp retired in Chisholm, I think that was the end of their fax program, pretty sure.
But you know what? I think we're all good people and we're all good school boards and we all have the best interest of our students in mind.
Yeah,
And we need to figure out how we can work together for our students, for our young people.
yeah.
Gene Boymark retired and that fell by the wayside, and then Tremworth, Mrs. Tremworth.
Luckily, we had
Took
Trevor.
over,
Yeah.
because I was on that committee for 12 years, I think. and
Right.
It was a good program. There's
Yes.
still some stuff going on, so.
Yeah, I'm talking Sandy Rupp in Chisholm.
Right.
She was the fax, you know.
But we used to,
Yeah,
we had Chisholm people on board here too.
yes, we did.
But again, how can we get, you know, the legislature to look at those funding formulas? Because we need, I mean, like, there's certain money that we need just to keep these doors open, let alone offer curriculum.
Well, there'll be a future discussion here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Alex, we are on the sources of revenue.
Okay, thank you. This one's always definitely interesting because, you know, a lot of folks think that their local taxes fund the schools. In the case of Hibbing, about 9% of the district's revenue comes from local sources. Hibbing has one of the lowest in the area, if not the state, of percentage of local funding, and that is because, in no small part because of our taconite funding. We get the largest chunk of taconite funding in the state. So just 9%, the rest comes from the majority from the state sources, and then the remainder from federal and grant sources.
So Alex, just 9% from property taxes is what you're saying?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Alex, what worst case scenario, what would the damages be to our district if Hibbing Taconite would have shut the doors?
Yeah, well, Mr. Aldrich and I met with someone from Minnesota Revenue, and it's a loaded question. It sounds like there are some safeguards where if they just shut down, we have some hold harmless and some protection from just a catastrophic loss. Is that correct, Mr. Aldrich, or am I?
Yep, absolutely, but what the sobering reality is that, you know, if students leave the district, yes, our taconite tax revenue might be safe for a number of years, but if students leave the district,
Right.
that has all this multiplying effect with other, I mean, our LTFM is based on our students, our capital dollars are based on our students, our compensatory dollars are based on our students. So when that number falls off, you don't just lose the $10,000 per student, you lose all that built-in other formula money that drives all of our revenue. So it can be catastrophic if HibTech were to close and families left our area.
Yeah, Hibbing and Chisholm could shut their front door and lock it.
Yeah.
And leave.
They have to give, I think, 2 years' notice before you close the plant down anyways,
But still,
but it's some heads up, but it,
And there's what, a 5-year rolling average, or 3-year rolling average on taconite? Production taxes?
3 years for the case of schools, yeah.
But shutting down is one thing, if they start laying off, you know, how many families are gonna stick around, right?
That's the thing, once you make an announcement, if they do,
So those of you that went through it, and I went through it as a kid, and I was going to school here, I was in 7th, 8th grade. My dad was laid off from Mintac. You know, there's unemployment, and then there's some extensions on unemployment, then there's some retraining that happens, and, you know, maybe 3 years people would stick around to kind of play that out, but it was devastating. I mean, I remember, you know, going to the food shelf and picking up a block of cheese and powdered milk as a kid, because and we were in a line with hundreds of people doing it, so it was devastating here. And lots of people left and never came back.
well, 2009, Hibbing Tax shut down for a year.
Okay, Alex, I think we're still on sources of revenue. Would you like me to move ahead?
Yes, if you could, please.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just an expense breakdown, very similar to what we've discussed in the past. 75% of our money goes to salaries and wages. So, like Mr. Aldrich said, if you want to, you know, if you look at meaningful reductions, it's unfortunately, it's probably in staffing. With the next biggest being our purchase services, which we rely on. It's hard to cut down on purchase services, you know, things like nursing, that's, you know, INAC, transportation. So it really is the salaries and wages and benefits. And then you can see some of the other smaller categories, capital, debt service, and then up some other miscellaneous things. And then on the last page here, just an enrollment history. Some good and some bad here I see in this. You know, we had many years of relative stability around that 2,400, and that really was a good thing for the district. And then that 1920 school year just started falling off, and then the pandemic didn't help. Good news here that I see is that we appear to stabilize a little bit in 22, 23. I think we're down 15 or 16 kids from where we ended last year. It's just, if we can maintain at that level, then we can hopefully, you know, right size and adjust. And you know, even if we could gain a few more back, that would be great. But I think it's just always important to keep an eye on trends, and that's kind of your 10, 12-year trend on the enrollment. And then lastly, opportunity for questions or comments from public or the board or anyone else.
What happened in 1819, 1920?
So Director Martin was asking what happened in 1819?
Between those 2 years, between 18 and,
19?
yeah. What was going on in
In
What
that
year,
large-
what year was the COVID? 19 or?
20?
Was that the year
COVID
that
was
we
20.
had the challenging labor negotiations?
Yeah, it was.
But that would make a difference up there.
But yeah, what was going on that we lost so many students right there?
Is that when we had the protests out front?
No, that was
With the
COVID,
masks.
that would.
No, that was before the masks.
Director Martin, I think I have a piece of it anyway, but so these numbers that Alex is showing you, and it was fairly stable. We had some larger graduating classes that left and some smaller incoming kindergartens. That's about the time when our kindergarten number dipped under
Birth rates went down.
200, 180-ish, and it just, we weren't backfilling with the younger kids, with the older kids that were graduating. I think that was the big change there.
So in 2019, 20, wasn't 20 when COVID started?
Yes.
Like in February or whatever? So
My first year was.
did that affect that?
My first year was
Also?
2019, when I came, the fall of 2019, and then that spring of that
Of 20 is when COVID
is
started.
when it hit, yeah.
Well, I just feel like we have to figure out how to market all the good things we have going on here. I
Well,
mean,
we get no coverage.
but just even walking down the hall to that multi-sensory room, you know, like just little things like
There
that.
should be an article in the paper about
We
that.
have a lot of good things going on in this district, and how we can get our own students' backs.
At the state demographer, I went to a conference a month ago on that. This is gonna hold about like that for the next 10 years, she said, because of the birth rates and what's happened up to this point. We'll probably stay that same for like 2 people, kids per family, and people moving out of the area. There's not as much moving into the area. It was real interesting. Too bad we couldn't get that up here for a presentation. It took everything into consideration, jobs, this and that. And
Who gave that
she
presentation?
was a state demographer, whatever,
Demographer.
demographer, I can't remember her name, but we should maybe look into that, Everett, that'd be,
That might be a good thing for Ida at Rams, like to
yeah,
bring
you
it
should
up.
say, we might do it over with Rams and have the whole
Yeah.
area up here.
That might be
Because
good.
that was down in the cities, at a conference,
Okay.
but
But you're right, Kathy.
Real
Look at-
interesting.
Look at the Hibbing paper. Chisholm Schools has this
Yeah, Chisholm has their own paper for
full,
goodness
full
sakes.
page
Yeah.
in the Hibbing paper every week.
Could we get could we get a section in the newspaper? A regular
Paper.
column? I mean,
I think we need to look at Hometown Focus and explore what they might, if they would be willing to give us more
And they
coverage.
would be more than willing, they're begging for articles.
Are they?
And they're all positive articles.
And
So
it's
to be part of that's just part of being positive.
It's a great, I pick it up every week.
Yeah.
I really wish I had a chance to meet him, to meet Scott Osbach, one of the owners this summer, and just an amazing, positive person. And if we could get him to come to our school board meeting, I mean, and the thing is, we've been talking about this for a long time, right? Like, we need positive press,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah, I'm gonna say something, I'll probably get in trouble for doing this, quite large. I think we gotta stop kicking ourselves in the ass and get out and be the leader in what this range is gonna have, because if we don't, this school's gonna close, Chisholm's gonna close, Nashwa's gonna close. If the mines go, my understanding is Hit-Tac's gonna start laying off people in March. And yes, everybody's, oh, well, we got SR, and they're gonna build a $150 million project over at Nashwa. That's not gonna help us. If anything, it's gonna help Nashwa, who's building a new school.
Nashwauk Rapids and Deer River.
Correct. So to me, yeah, we can get articles in the paper, we can do this, we can do radio ads. I think as a board member and the diversity we have on this board, we need to get off our ass and go out and start talking to these people in Chisholm, start talking to some of these other people in the other schools. We just got their best guy from Chisholm to come work here. So if we can combine and do something, because the reality is, if we don't do something, either they're gonna get hurt or we're gonna get hurt. And right now, you look at these enrollment numbers, I don't know what Chisholm's enrollment is, I'm sure it's down.
They're down also. yeah.
So where's everybody going? And they're not, Cherry's full, and they're not taking any more kids. So are people just leaving the area and not coming back?
St. Louis County was down also. I have a document, I can share all the percentage losses with you, but everybody's down.
But we have so much plus up here. We have a great school. We have, I'm not a political thing, because I'm not running for anything.
Not today, anyway.
We got clinics, we got hospitals, we've got schools, we've got hunting, we got fishing, we've got lakes, we got everything, except for Hibbing. We have one lousy lake that we call Cary Lake that can't even get a campground, it's been working on for 12 years. And it's time for, I think that the school needs to be the forefronter, because the city's not gonna do it.
Right.
And we need to be the forefront to go forward and work with the city, work with Chisholm, have a meeting with their board. Why don't we have a meeting with the Chisholm board? Are we afraid to say
Can you
it?
set that up?
Think they're- I mean,
Yeah, like you
How
said, I
many-
talk to the board chair
We've talked about
twice
this.
a month, I meet with him and
I think we need
goes
to,
nowhere.
I think we need to extend, well, 2 things. They passed their referendum,
So now
has
they're
that train,
legally
has
bound.
that train left? And then, or could we work with the department, whatever?
Yeah, maybe.
How
And
many students are we gonna lose when that building opens over there? 'Cause there's a
Right.
certain percentage of parents
Yeah.
that new means better.
We're
New
gonna go
means
to
better.
Nashua,
Oh,
too.
we got a
And
new
that's all.
mayor and some new council people too, so maybe we could get them to a board meeting or
Well,
something.
I guess what I look at, John, is we made the move to build this early childhood center, which is gonna bring younger kids hopefully to the area, but what do we need to do to keep them? You know, we're above average and we're above what our goals are for education, they need to, you know, let people know that. But I'm really afraid that, and, you know, I shouldn't talk because, you know, I'm looking at leaving here, but my kids are all gonna be here. And I wanna make sure that they have a good school that they can continue to go to. But,
Chisholm's gonna have a new early childhood, and so is Nashua. They're gonna, you know, that's part
Right.
of their buildings.
and that's gonna draw away
So
from
now we're
what we
not
have.
gonna get all those kids.
But
They're
how-
gonna stay in town.
But how are they gonna afford their curriculum once they have that building?
Well, I don't know, they'll figure it out, they'll get money from the IRRB or somebody.
Somebody will come to save them.
Someone will save them, yeah,
I think they're gonna have financial problems. that-
probably, but
That are gonna happen, but, you know, I think one of the things that's happening in our school is we have a lot of energy in our administrators that's changing the culture. And somehow, that's what we have to start talking about, are those positive things. And then I think people are gonna wanna come, but when they come, then we have to have kids and teachers, but really kids that are welcoming and not this clique stuff.
I mean, you know, when you look at that, it's not just the school, but the whole community's gotta have a culture shock because we have a downtown area that I wouldn't, if I were to come into this town and I drove through downtown, I sure in hell wouldn't wanna live here.
I just heard that today myself from somebody else.
Right. So, you know, we have to, hey, yeah.
Alex, I got you back on the screen and I closed your presentation.
No problem.
Hey, you want some answers on COVID, just ask, I'll tell you all about that.
We'd like to see the baby, but we can't,
Yeah.
so,
We'll let you get some rest, Theo. You're welcome
but we
to.
do, and you know what, and we keeps talking about it.
well, let's have
We
this
don't
joint
know
To
meeting.
do something.
Yeah, let's have
We
this
need to
joint
do
meeting,
something.
let's start there.
And I think it has to extend, like, beyond
There-
the chair, like,
I got a
Whether
meeting
it's
next
the-
week with the chair. I'll tell him, set up a meeting.
whether it's the
If you wanna
school
call
board or
Adrian,
the city
come and see
council, or
Yeah.
both city councils and both
But-
school
but I
boards, we need to do something.
Maybe,
We need to
maybe they
understand
can
that
do
they are
it.
legally bound and committed to see that project through.
As presented.
They are,
Both.
Chisholm
They
is.
are.
But maybe like Kim said, we can go to the state, wherever they, I don't know, State Department, get something
Yeah, but
changed.
they allocated 34 million, they're already over budget up to 40-some million dollars.
Exactly, so maybe they're willing to discuss still. They
It's not
haven't,
in their hands, it's gonna be the taxpayers that are gonna have to make that difference.
So what happens if they're already 8 million over budget? I mean,
They're
what happens-
legally obliged
So
to
they're,
see it through.
are they obliged to see 32 million through and then cut down the scope of the project?
Yeah,
That's what I would
Is
Well,
say.
that what they
could,
do?
I don't know.
that's the only way to do it.
Or find additional revenue, I think that's this nickel that they're talking about, the other sources. You know,
Yeah, so
They're
here we
lobbying
are.
just like we are to increase capital dollars and
So we're
LTIP
sitting here
dollars.
trying to endorse this nickel thing with the county, and they're gonna be 8 million over budget. And the way
Yeah.
politics work,
They're gonna get the
we're
money.
not gonna
Yeah.
get
We,
it.
We,
Diddly squat, they're gonna get the whole thing.
I was thinking that when Commissioner Jugovich was presenting, we need to have a plan submitted on day one.
Yep.
Because if we don't, the money's gonna be gone.
I'm already working on it.
Perfect.
I already got a meeting scheduled, so yes, we're gonna be in the hopper. And I do think, and politically, we need to see some revenue out of that fund. And I think everybody sees that and understands that, and
Yeah, but they need it more than us.
no, we need it just as bad as they do. I mean, our.
Not as bad as they do.
Their
Well, you
taxpayers are totally obligated for this thing.
politically, we don't have the pull. Chisholm has the pull. They've always had it between Tom Sony, Janicet,
Yep.
Vita, Vic,
Honey,
whatever.
honey, Mark, yeah.
We're not camera, are we? Vita,
Are we
you
on
know,
camera?
so they had everything, this whole town has to get what we deserve.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we gotta step up, and we gotta be the leader, and like you said, if we wanna get with the school board, fine. Well, why not get the city involved in it? I mean, they can't even argue over whether or not to call it the Chisholm Hibbing Airport or the Hibbing Chisholm Airport. I mean, it's just ridiculous that
It
they
is.
go through some of this stuff.
You know what?
I think you're right in getting together with the city as Hibbing and presenting a more, I don't know.
Well, if we're gonna go after money, the school district's gonna have better luck getting money into the city of Hibbing. So they have to work with us in order to get some of the things that they wanna do.
You know,
And that should be part of the whole thing too, is the school integrated into the community as a whole, to be a big part of it.
you guys, and even my opinion, we can't just focus on a $50 million ice arena. Like, there's other things that are more critical or more essential. I feel like we're kind of in, I don't want to say survival mode, but if Hibbing Tap goes down, right? And I'm optimistic. I think, from my perspective, purely my opinion, as long as Director Egan started off on inappropriate conversation or whatever, you know, I think it's going to be interesting watching the operations of the IRRR board, because I think it's going to be different. There's going to be a new commissioner who's going to be appointed by a DFL governor. But, the makeup of the board is going to be the opposite political party. So just Kim's opinion is, I think there's going to be different criteria and different levels of accountability. That's what I'm,
It's very interesting that as a democratic region, we elected Republican representation.
Yeah, but let's
Basically.
look at countrywide,
Yeah.
so things happening, so it changes, but we're not gonna solve that issue
No.
now, so we'll get together, set a board meeting together, and
so do we
I
think
mean-
we should invite the city councils
I
from
think-
both of the communities also?
I think we should meet with the city council before we meet with Chisholm, so we're speaking as a community as opposed to just two school boards.
Yeah, but don't you think we need to know what Chisholm's thinking, their
I
school
think
board?
those meetings can be relatively close. I mean, when they're talking about building a $50 million hockey arena here.
Yeah,
Who's gonna pay for that?
but I think,
Us.
Well-
We're the biggest payers to
we
the
gotta,
city when it comes to ice time.
we have to wait till after the first of the year.
I think we
People
should-
get sworn in, so then we have to wait for new people, so we can set
I
up
think we
these
should just
meetings.
meet with the school board in Chisholm first, then go after the city.
Yeah, then we can have one after that with the city,
the
tell them
cities.
where we're.
You know, Hibbing, I hate to be negative Nelly, but like you said, once Nashua gets their new school and Chisholm gets their new school, those things aren't gonna benefit us in any way.
Well, then we need to build,
In
we
any
should build a
way.
new high school then, right?
Right, but I'm
Good
just
luck
saying,
with that.
we're gonna be in worse dire straits once they get their new schools. How is that gonna help Hibbing in any possible way?
But they
Not-
voted for it.
So what does?
I know, but it's not gonna help us, we're a little in the middle.
Well, we can't tell them how to vote.
I
So
know.
what was this,
They-
what was
Yeah.
their referendum? Okay, was it to build a building? Or was it, like, did it say, we are building a building and it's gonna be a K-12 building? I mean, like, if we could have a conversation.
Right.
To talk about a middle school,
Could we still
something
do the
else.
middle school?
Do they have
Yeah.
that latitude? Is it a building or is it a building with a specific
right.
purpose?
That's my thing, Kim.
Well,
Could they change it into a middle school?
I think the one, and you know, I could be wrong, but like from the outside looking in, what resonated for me is that vote was a vote to remain completely independent.
It was?
Public that was
Yeah,
voting
that was their
yes,
chance
they were
to-
voting not,
What was the referendum? But it didn't say we will remain completely independent.
No, but it,
but the conversations
implied
in the
that? It implied
background,
that? Okay.
the meetings in the community, I think that's the.
But
was
maybe
the
we
the
could change the
editorials
mind.
in the paper.
Yeah, but maybe we could change their mind.
It's too late.
So,
Too late, no.
but
Why?
wait a minute, but
They
did
voted.
the
I
pub-
know they're gonna, but like Kim said, maybe we could change what the building is.
But did their public know? Did their public know that it's really isn't a $32 million project, that it's really a $40 million project?
The board chair explained it to me, and he said that's false information. That's all I can tell you, because that's all I know, but was told what's going around, oh no, because we're gonna get some money from here, he said, and here and here.
Where?
Nickel,
I didn't write it down,
Nickel
but he
tax.
said it's covered, we're not gonna have that.
From the county or?
Yeah, but everyone else is saying, they're gonna be in the hole even, so I don't know.
But truth be told, if we
Well-
don't change the culture in the community, you're not gonna change
Right,
it.
exactly.
Chisholm hates Hibbing, Hibbing hates Chisholm. Hibbing hates Nashwauk, Nashwauk hates Hibbing. It goes back 50 years
It
or how
does.
long, it's 100 years.
And Bob
So what
Beluso,
can
who
we-
used to be superintendent here, campaigned against it.
Yeah,
They said they don't need it. So here's a guy, education-wise,
yes.
he couldn't convince the city.
He wrote that letter
Yeah,
to that school board, and that was never publicized, right? The public never saw that letter. He could be the best expert to give that advice, and he gave the advice.
he was
And no
campaigning
one
over
saw
that.
it.
who was that?
No one acknowledged it.
Beluso, he wrote that letter, and no one acknowledged it. I never heard one word about it.
Well, and they even say that we haven't even explored those things. Well, it was right there,
Well, what is
that they
So-
should do that.
The school board ignored it.
Or something like that.
So I'm gonna go back to the original question.
Yeah,
What can we do? How can we come up with some sort of plan to try to recapture those, is it 400 and some students that reside in the Hibbing School District and try to market to them and their families all the good things we have going on to try to get at least the ones that live in
yeah.
this area.
Could we do home visits?
Well, we started with the childhood center and all. We thought that was gonna bring in money.
Yeah.
So,
No, if,
And we do have it stabilizing.
yeah.
Yeah.
if you do remember, if you remember when I first came here, I
Yeah.
believe in the first year, I pulled out names and addresses of every one of those families and
Yeah.
personally sent them a
I
letter.
remember that,
Yeah.
yeah.
And,
Have we done anything since then?
not in that vein, or.
We really should.
Did that help? I mean, was there any
Did we
response
get
to that?
anybody? Yeah.
Well, I mean, so we have improved, and the number, I think I sent that out to you in the fall. You know, how many we've got coming in from Chisholm and how many go out to Chisholm, and how many come in
Yep.
from Nashwauk and how many go out. Those numbers have improved, the in-out ratio has improved, but I think it has a lot to do with just this declining enrollment in our region, right? There's just less kids going around, so the 90 that went to Nashwauk that's now 70 isn't really because they came back to us or they're gone. They're just gone, so.
And the other thing that you said is we're down 3% where many of the others are down 8 or 9%.
Yeah.
So they're getting some of our students, but look at that.
Yeah.
We're gonna be more stable.
Well, I think it's
Anybody
time we write another letter from you to
Sure.
the kids, don't you think?
Sure.
I do.
I'd really like to see us follow up with the school board.
And that
Maybe
too.
on the other hand, look at doing a community-oriented party and invite people to come and see what the hell we got here.
Well, that begs the other question. There's stuff on Facebook every week lately. What are we gonna do for the anniversary? We have a 100th anniversary of this building coming out.
When is it?
This summer.
This
No,
summer,
not this summer.
Next summer.
Graduating
It'd
class.
be
is
2024 for us,
2024.
yes.
Yeah,
2024.
but that's
We
coming
should do
up
a big
fast.
party.
We need to do something.
Yeah, well, we of course, with, you know, all the in-kind tours,
Oh, yeah.
all that, but typically that was planned by, I think,
All class reunion is gonna do something, but they've kind of disbanded.
Mr. Dicklich, I think, that planned the last all class.
Yeah.
Ron
He's not around.
Dicklich.
Yeah.
And I heard he's not interested in doing it again, so I know there's some conversation about somebody stepping up and doing that, but I don't think that the planning of all that citywide, I don't think that's the school. I don't even know if that's the city. I think that needs to be more of a
I'm
community.
thinking about having an enrollment party.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Just an
seriously,
just an
have an
open
enrollment
house
party,
type thing
Set
where-
everything out,
Yeah.
let them, send it to the ones that left and have them come on in and,
Yeah.
you know, that's what they do in politics, booze them and wine them and dine them and come on in and we'll sign you up. Come
How
back
about
to
if
Us, it would be hot dogs and
Yeah.
Kool-Aid, but
free
yeah.
food,
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
But could we give gift cards or
What?
something to anyone that came back to re-enroll in Hibbing?
I like that, yeah.
No.
I mean, a gift card for books or something, I don't know. something school related?
Marketing, Hibbing t-shirts.
Or Hibbing, a sweatshirt, a hooded
Send them over
sweatshirt?
pictures of the Hibbing t-shirts.
Well, we'll set up a meeting in January.
But yeah, I mean, a party,
School boards.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Barbecue party.
But you know what, it's gonna take something where
I know a guy can barbecue.
we have to be good at it. I mean, we have to be out there trying to invite and get people, because if we just say, hey, come to this open house,
Yeah. It doesn't work that
people
well.
may not come.
Yeah.
Somehow we have to connect.
Well, I think a personal letter sent to their home is really good.
Yep.
I do.
I mean, we could, we could easily have an event that highlights all the positive things that we're doing in the school and the community. That would be a great idea. I just don't know, does that draw in people that aren't here? Or are we just kind of patting all of ourselves on the back and the people that are here?
Well, we should
We'd
get
have
some
to talk through
feedback
that.
from it.
Yeah.
You know,
We'll get
we
some
all-
ideas.
You know what, I feel like, just like Renee Sikora was talking about when we were, about the duty day and who you connect with,
Yeah.
it would almost be an interesting exercise to see who those families are that have left our district,
Yep.
and then finding somebody in our school community that knows those people and
Yeah.
connect with them.
Could make
So
a
I
call.
can go to my neighbor and say, hey, will you just come with me to this event?
Yeah.
And we have to kind of get them to want to come.
Or get us
How about a
list.
personal
Yeah,
phone
pass it
call?
around.
Or whatever, however you
Yeah.
can connect with that person and really welcome them and invite them to come to this
I
event.
think a letter and then a follow-up phone call. But I'd be happy to make phone calls.
Yep.
That'd be really nice, don't worry.
Well, we'll get a list.
Super nice.
I think I,
Super, super
and
nice.
I'm just looking across the table too, that would be a really, I mean, there's not anybody that's a fan of our district.
Yeah.
That would be,
Kim's gonna give away all your
But
free time. isn't she?
But I raised 3 kids here that
Yeah.
went through every
Yeah.
grade, K to
Yeah.
12, so, well, you did too.
Okay, we'll get a lot of ideas, we'll work on that meeting. and,
Yeah.
And I didn't, so there'd be a,
Yeah, but we could hope, yeah.
all our kids,
Oh, yeah.
they can all connect.
One last thing, if we do have this meeting, I'd like, we have to make it clear to them that we're not here to overtake their school
Right.
district.
We'll
We're
have an
here to
agenda.
work with each other to find answers to what our problem is
Yeah.
and what their problem is.
We'll
That's
put
the
out
way to
a
approach it.
generic agenda, that's all.
Correct.
We'll-
And I think we have to keep focus on the kids, right? Like, what's best for the kids in this area?
And I was thinking about that, Mike, like, Hibbing's always giving to Chisholm, say. We've talked about that. We're always letting their kids join all our sports and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, now finally, we've got the robotics thing, right?
Yep.
That we're doing, they're letting us join them.
And there's also bowling,
Okay,
that they're doing, that we're.
but most of the time, they're asking us, they're taking from us, right? We have a need right now in football. We would like to combine, I think we should work on combining our football programs. Hibbing needs that right now. That's Hibbing's weakness, that's our need. And so why can't we just be humble and say to them, hey, this is what we need right now. We would really like to work on combining our football programs. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, and if they
Because we don't
enough
have a
people-
lot of needs. We're a great district. We're not weak in many areas, but we are there right now.
so why would they wanna come to
Yeah,
us?
We have a new field.
But
They can
But
rent
do we
it
have-
from us.
do we have to sell it to them like?
I think we should sell
Look at
it,
what
we need
look
you.
what we could do together as a football program,
Well,
as
that-
opposed to either of us separately.
No, that one's selling to them, because their football program's doing great right now.
Right, so why would they,
But I'm saying, that is our need. Let's be humble and say, hey, that's our need.
But the
So
problem with that
then we
is,
should go to them.
the high school league will take their enrollment plus our enrollment and it'll put us up another, so we're playing
Up
with
Up with
Duluth
the
these.
big
Yeah.
teams,
Will it or not?
Oh,
It
yeah.
will, yeah.
because
The big teams? We're not
Yeah.
that big with them. They
No, but-
graduate 50, we graduate 150.
They take
But I mean,
full
we are,
enrollment.
we are in all the other areas, like hockey, basketball, I mean, we're
Yeah.
playing White Bear Lakes and,
because of that.
I'm just saying, Hibbing is not weak in many areas, but we are there.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
That's what we need from them.
Well, one football team isn't gonna resurrect the problems. that
I'm
we're
just
looking
saying
at
that would be
now.
a thing we could work on together.
Oh, right, right. We'll talk,
And
discuss
it
that
isn't
at
funny, Marge,
board meeting.
because we just spent millions on that football field, so it isn't funny.
No, that's not.
It's a
that's
huge,
not what I meant.
it's a huge problem in Hibbing right now.
So that, just like a little bit of history, and I don't go
Yeah.
back that far.
It's just not.
But I was the athletic director in Chisholm.
Yeah,
Mr. Paluzzo and Tim Scott were the superintendent athletic director here.
yeah.
They called me over and pitched that idea in 2008.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the year that Chisholm had a state team that went for football.
Okay.
So I went back, brought that to the board. Of course not. Why would, you're successful, why would you have
Yeah.
and that's kind of where they're at right now as a team.
They're very successful,
They're having a good.
but we aren't,
Right,
and we need them.
right.
So if
Oh,
they came
But
over
they're
here, we'd go up another category, and then they wouldn't be able to be champions.
I
Yes,
guess,
it's-
well, if they don't wanna do anything to help us, that's the same old story, so whatever.
We're kind of
Well, I
getting
guess
off
the
to
question is to
You're
be,
not
what do we
Yeah.
give to
Yeah,
them?
Everything, we've given them everything.
Okay, the chair will make a motion to
Every
adopt
sport,
and certify
every
the
sport,
2020
John.
levy. We're out of order.
Oh, you
Is
wanna
there a
play
second?
tennis? Okay, we'll let you play
We have
tennis.
to have a motion to
Chair
approve
made the
this.
motion,
I'll
Poultry,
second.
Director Poultry seconded it.
Is that right
Adopt
now?
and certify the fund.
I'm sorry, Director Egan had a comment. I
I
apologize.
think we have to make a motion to approve the levy. do we?
That's what I'm doing right
That's what
now.
Oh, but then you went back to adjourn.
No, then I said no to approve the.
Oh, okay, thank you.
He's gonna throw that at me.
Use that hammer.
Hey, I sat in your chair for one day and I got that power.
You did a good job.
With no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Alex. So get some rest.
Thank you,
Bye, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks for listening to all our problems.
We've been giving.
So we had to stop him.
Now we need to
Who
start taking,
seconded that motion?
yeah,
Poultry.
our turn to start taking.
Okay, without objection, Jeff,
Motion to adjourn, third time.
meeting's adjourned at 7:07. And thank everybody for the wonderful discussion.